Earlier today, mayors from both Canada and the U.S. met in a virtual news conference to share their concerns on the trade war and possible implications for Canadians and Americans.
Natalie Kuchko joins us now in studio with more on what was said there ahead of the president's announcement that we heard about an hour or two ago. Natalie.
Yes, so as we saw on News 8 at 4, President Trump from the White House announcing reciprocal tariffs this afternoon. And in simple terms, this means there will be a baseline of 10% tariffs on essentially all imports. So Rochester Mayor Malik Evans, he was among the various city leaders invited to weigh in today on behalf of both countries. Nearly a dozen mayors from Ontario and Quebec, Canada, and neighboring U.S. cities to the border met Wednesday morning to discuss potential shifts in federal trade policies ahead of President Donald Trump's action to impose reciprocal tariffs.
We're relying on our partners to try to do what we can. I think that this is a all hands on deck conversation that needs to take place. This is something that a conversation that just not Rochester can have alone. It involves also our congressional delegation, our state partners. This is just not Rochester is hit, but it's also the entire state and all of our cities across New York State. So the conversations have to involve a wide multitude of people, because we have to show that this is not just going to impact one area.
Earlier this week, Brighton Securities financial advisor Ethan Wade explained his perspective on the possible impacts to the local and national economies.
The ultimate root and goal, I think, is the intention to have more manufacturing here in the United States, for us to have more products that are made in the U.S. And I think that it has to be a long-term goal, which if everything works out and that goes to plan, that's fantastic. The other side of that is that when you're implementing tariffs and you're imposing tariffs, we all have to expect that in the short term, there will be pain that we have to deal with.
St. Catharines, Ontario Mayor Matt Cisco added the ripple effects had already been felt ahead of the president's briefing.
I would argue that that a lot of the impacts have already begun. It hasn't quite rippled out into the mainstream consciousness yet, but it will, because I think we're going to see layoffs if businesses continue to hold on to capital and choose not to spend because of the uncertainty of what is coming.
So what about us locally? Well, just yesterday, Senator Chuck Schumer addressed reporters saying upstate New York would be, quote, hit the hardest by Trump's imposed tariff plan. The senator estimating upwards of 30,000 workers across the Finger Lakes region alone would see some sort of risk as a result. Be sure to stay with News 8 on this developing story. Reporting in studio, Natalie Kuchko, News 8.